Would love for you guys to be able to share from your unique perspective. What would you want people to know from a counseling perspective about anger?
Well, I would say anger is often a secondary emotion in that it comes up to kind of cover or protect us from hurt and fear. And so it has a purpose. Sometimes it can be an arrow pointing to some things that we need to work on and
Mm,
accept and just continue to mine for more information about ourselves and our motives. And so I think it's really important that we take anger not just as something that's negative, but also look at it as, is it a roadmap that's pointing us towards something we need to work on?
Well,
mm,
it's definitely, I heard a really great working definition. I like the idea of seeing anger as a way to preserve our worth, our needs, or our convictions. And sometimes, as you're saying, Stephanie, like I feel like we don't know how to verbalize that. So sometimes out of lack of how else to say it, we might express it or spew it or stuff it. And so that idea of what other ways can we do? So emotional regulation or really understanding where is this hurt coming from? But also to be fair, being sensitive to if this is trauma based, that's another level that needs to be addressed differently.
mm.
Exactly.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Like when you say trauma based, what do you mean there, Paul?
Well, to be angry, again, if it's talking about a basic need and worth and conviction, you should be angry about some things that happen. So maybe to that point, that response is appropriate, but if it's getting out of balance or getting you in trouble with other relationships. The other thing I find very interesting is when do people come to counseling or realize they have an anger problem? It's usually in the context of a relationship, right? And so how is it interfering as a father with their kids or a mother dealing with kids or in a situation, boyfriend, girlfriend, or spouse situation. So putting in the context, what are you trying to gain from having a better way? Or to the trauma language, is it past experiences impacting current situations? And so helping someone dive into where is this really coming from?
Mm,
Stuff you want to
that's
add to
good.
that, trauma?
Yeah, no, I think you're right on. I think, a lot of times anger is an appropriate response, but it's how we manage it, what we do with it that helps. And I know sometimes anxiety can come across more aggressive. And, if we deal with that aggression in a healthy way, maybe that's taking a boxing class or running or pounding a basketball or just, venting with a therapist can be really helpful to continue to work on that and see what's really underneath that.
Mm. Yeah, it's so good. I think of a lot of the conversations I've had just with people in this season feeling confused about their anger and like just noticing, um, man, I'm angry, and sometimes I've even heard people say they need help pinpointing that they are angry, like I don't even realize I'm angry and I need help kind of like filtering that out. But I think it's also easy in this season where we've been in the midst of a global pandemic for quite some time that there's kind of this like residual stacking up of factors where that kind of bubbles up to the surface before you even realize it. Go
Nick, I
ahead.
mean, to your point, sorry, can I add like, like a tip or something to do with it? I think of particularly from a youth standpoint, think about youth getting angry. The idea of, well, stop it, that's never good enough, right?
Mhm.
You can't just stop it. So I think it's much healthier and productive to give them something to do with it, right?
Mhm.
And so using it from a kid model, but I think it can also apply to us adults. But from a kid, one of the things literally that I like to say to youth is show me self-control, right? To crunch your anger. Like if you can see, like if I literally put my hands in handcuffs, right? If I'm getting angry, I'm being mean to my siblings or talking back, if I put myself in self-control, crunch my anger, I have something to do. And literally, if you crunch it and then you release it, it kind of feels good. It feels like you did something versus just stop it and get over it, right?
Mhm.
Stephanie, you mentioned as adults, maybe we need to, go exercise or go for a run or bike ride or, lift weights, something to get it out.
Yes.
Notice all of these, I think, Nick, are important because they're productive, healthy, not, the old joke of counseling could be go in this room, we're going to give you both two foam swords to hit each other with, and that'll help work out your aggression. I think the idea of screaming in a pillow or punching a wall, I think those are aggressive, destructive things that could lead to further problems. So I challenge do something that's more productive and not harmful or destructive. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would add that with kids, I often tell parents like have have more on the yes list than the no list. Like we have some no's about what we don't do when we're angry, but as many things as they can do that's appropriate and that helps them express in good ways. It's always better to have a longer list of yeses if you can, so they have more to choose from for how to deal.
Well, and this might add to other topics we're going to talk about, but the idea of emotional regulation and connecting yourself in the moment, because you're right, things stack on top of each other, so it can have a sense of lack of control. So some things you can't always control is your breathing, or maybe your hands, or putting your hands in your pockets, or tactile sensory stuff. There's things you can do to feel like you have some sense of control if things are feeling out of control.
So good. There's so much rich things there. Because I'm thinking, like, as a parent, I have 3 boys at home, 7, 5, and 4, and there's times even they're feeling the pandemic right now. Just even last night, I can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, it's something that they normally do at school, like an annual tradition. It was Valentine's. They were going to give out Valentine's to their friends. Well, we're not doing that this year because COVID. And just those things even affect them. And for them, at times, it comes out as anger. And as much as it's easier as parents or adults to picture a kid throwing a tantrum, but we do the same thing, right? But I love, Stephanie, your point of give them yeses. This is yes, what you do with that anger, which takes a lot more intentionality. And honestly, just as parents, a lot of times we're not equipped to think that way because that's not how we were parented. Those are not resources we have. So that's really good. Are there any, you may have already used them all, but like, are there other like yeses that you would give for kids or adults?
Give families that's harder to do this time of year because it's so cold, but is get water balloons, fill up a bucket full of water balloons and let your kids slam them against a tree or a brick wall or something like that. That's great for small kids to that release of emotion and make it fun. Like releasing aggression doesn't always have to be while we're aggressive. If you've stuffed it already in the day, making time to get it out later can still be a valid, helpful thing. We can't always stop our work day or our school day to get it out right then, but are we getting it out at some point? It's really important.
So good. Yeah. And I was going to add, if I can, the idea of, you're right too. If we think about our parenting, we're like, okay, let's help them have a transition time to know what's coming. We might even say, hey, you guys seem a little bit squirrely. Can you give me 5 push-ups or 5 jumping jacks, or let's run around the room before I ask you to do the next task. And we see that as helping them transition, but we don't do that for ourselves, right? So now, great, as adults, if we're going to the next meeting, I'm going to do 5 push-ups. Maybe I should, but like, what I mean? Like, we took some time to actually be in tune with ourselves, we might be not as stuffed up.
Well, like I said before, head to tpcc.org/care or /counseling to see resources that would be helpful, and also to see a list of vetted counselors who we trust to give you more ongoing support to walk through issues as complex as this. Don't be ashamed about getting help. We all need it, and you can't do life alone. So again, head to tpcc.org/care or /counseling to get more help and walk with Jesus through this season.